Let's talk now about stress and anxiety. There are different types of anxiety. There can be bodily and mental anxiety. You got bodily pains, and that affects you. It stresses you. You got mental stress and anxiety. Maybe you can think of circumstances in which you were totally physically comfortable. You know, life's a beach, and you had no complaints whatsoever in terms of your body, yet your mind was filled with stress, your mind was on edge. Can you remember situations like that? So mental anxiety can be so overpowering that even when your body is comfortable, nicely gratified, still, everything is ruined when your mind is stressed out. So everyone can understand mental stress and anxiety, physical stress. Then there's social stress, social anxiety. What are others thinking about me? Am I fitting in? Am I being perceived as a good person or a smart person or a savvy person? Am I the kind of person that everyone's going to invite to their party? Or am I the type where everyone just forgets about me? This is social anxiety. Beyond that, though, there's still something beyond that, is what's called existential anxiety. What's the purpose of life? What's this all about? Why am I struggling so much? Who am I anyway? Existential anxiety is unique to human beings. You don't see any chickens scratching the ground wondering, why am I a chicken? But human beings, when they face maximum stress and anxiety in terms of their body, their mind, in terms of their social dealings, then they start wondering, what's the point of all this? What is the meaning of existence? What the yoga text will tell you is existential anxiety can actually be good for you. Because the purpose of this human form of life is to understand what is the real self and what is the ultimate self and the relationship between the two. The relationship between the tiny, non-material particle of consciousness and the supreme consciousness. When we look at bhakti texts, such as Bhagavad Gita and its graduate study, Srimad Bhagavatam, there we find a completely different standard of success. Yes, take care of your body, take care of your mind, but unless you know the process, unless you have the knowledge for unlocking the spiritual dynamics within, the non-material dynamics, actually your human form of life is a failure. What are normal ways that people try to relieve themselves of stress? When I say normal, I don't mean these are the best ways, but I mean these are the ways that people usually adopt. Okay, when you're stressed out, when you're overloaded with anxiety, what do? Huh?
Smoke a cigarette.
Smoke a cigarette. It really helps every time, right? Anyone else? Music. You put on some music.
Work out.
You work out in the gym or whatever.
Sleep.
Sleep. Okay.
Eat a lot.
Eat a lot.
Watch movies.
Watch movies.
Meditate.
Meditate on what? Everyone's meditating on something. Don't tell me. We won't speak about the hormone meditations. Any other? What do you do when you get stressed out?
Throw a water bottle as hard as I can.
Okay. So, there are kind of low material methods of stress relief, and there are higher material methods of stress relief. Let's talk about the higher material methods, but bear in mind they're still material. You can go for a walk in nature. Let me tell you, when I asked this question just 2 weeks ago in Melbourne, Australia, I had different answers. Most of the persons said when they're stressed out, they go for a walk in nature. A few of them said they go bicycling. And fewer still said they jump in a car and drive. And when they're driving, they feel at one with the car, they feel in control, and they're out on the open road somewhere in that way. They try to dissipate their stress. Fewer still said reading. They just start reading and lose themselves in the book. One guy, and everyone really looked at him when he said this, one guy said he relieves stress by studying. Everyone looked at him like he was some kind of nerd, you know? Because they're thinking studying brain stress doesn't relieve stress. So anyway, the remedies that you seek for relieving stress may vary from continent to continent. But what I'd like to point out to you tonight is these various methods are all on the material platform. When seen from the Bhakti Yoga text, the Krishna conscious text, these remedies actually don't get the job done. And you can even become more sophisticated in your material attempts to cure stress. You can do physical yoga, you can do yogic breathing exercises, and indeed those things are the best for the material body and material mind. But have you really gotten to the core of the stress problem? Basically, all that society can recommend to you after putting you on this high-stress maximization success program, all the society can really recommend is start breathing deeply, do some stretching, go for a walk. These remedies will not get the job done. I'd like to tell you a story about an extraordinary 5-year-old yogi. You'll find this history in the graduate study to Bhagavad Gita. This 5-year-old boy was named Prahlad. Those of you from India may recognize the name. Although only 5 years old, he had so much knowledge. He was fixed on enlightenment and self-realization. He was fixed on acting to achieve the ultimate goal of life. He had knowledge of his non-material self. He had knowledge of the Supreme Self. He had an immersion in the most essential Krishna conscious knowledge. His father, however, was a completely different character. His father was extraordinarily powerful, a dictator beyond the scope of what we can think of today. His father not only was a dictator, he was tyrannical. He was practically a terrorist. Yet he had such a lotus-like son, such a swan-like son, such an advanced yogi as a son. These things happen. So the father sent his son to school for learning material arts and sciences, like how to manipulate people, how to exploit people, how to silence them, how to placate them, and in this way, how to rule effectively as a materialist. So one day his 5-year-old son comes home from school And the father, lovingly, you know he's very tyrannical and terroristic, still it's his son, he has affection for his son. He picks the little boy up, puts him on his lap, embraces him, and says, "My dear boy, can you tell me, what is the best thing you learned in school today?" Now, how would you expect a 5-year-old boy to answer that normally? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1 + 1 = 2. What was the 5-year-old boy Prahlad's response? "My dear father, oh, best of the materialists." He wasn't saying that as a compliment, but his father liked it though. Yeah, best of the materialists. "My dear father, best of the materialists, please hear this one thing. The best thing I learned in school today is that anyone who has a material body and mind and thinks that is the self, they must be in anxiety." The father was shocked. Where does this stuff come from? What kind of school am I sending my boy to? I'm sending him to learn that everything is matter and that he should exploit, control, and enjoy matter to the utmost. And now he's coming back and telling me these things. Anyone who identifies the body and mind as the self must be in anxiety. Think about that. The father was shocked. How has my son been contaminated? Of course, the yogis know that the boy was giving a perfect answer. Think about that in terms of how it applies to you. How can we be peaceful if we are identifying with what we are not? How can we ever be successful? Some of you are aware of Bhagavad Gita, the prime bhakti yoga text. There, Krishna explains in his first lesson in chapter 2, right at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita means the song of the Supreme Opulent One. Krishna explains that just as you change clothes, similarly you change bodies. But the body is not the real self. The mind is not the real self. You see in Bhagavad Gita, there's no meaning to the statement, mind over matter. Because mind, the yogis know, is matter. It's just a subtle form of matter. So whether we identify with the physiology or we identify with the psychology, we've missed the point in terms of success. And the 5-year-old bhakti yogi Prahlad very eloquently pointed that out. You'll never get to peace as long as you think you are matter, and that to satisfy yourself you need to manipulate and exploit matter. Whether that matter is in the form of silicon chips or plastic or steel or flesh, as long as you're trying to derive satisfaction from matter, you'll always be in anxiety. That's the first step in genuine knowledge. Naturally, you want to be happy. I don't think anyone here goes out of their way to be distressful, to be absorbed in distress. You want happiness for yourself. But let's look at our conceptions of happiness. Whether they are grossly materialistic or even green materialistic, environmentally materialistic. If our conceptions of happiness are based on thinking we are matter, naturally we're going to pursue material acquisitions and material experiences as a way to satisfy ourselves. So the first step that Krishna advocates in Bhagavad Gita is confront this issue. What is the real self, material or non-material? Krishna doesn't ask you to take that on belief that you are non-material. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna presents the laboratory process for you to verify your non-material identity. And then, naturally, you'll be motivated to achieve non-material happiness once you understand what you actually are.